Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I would like to introduce and invite the guests for the closing panel discussion of Star Media Group's live virtual conference. This powerful panel lineup will be joined by senior business, policymaking, and retail leaders, where they will be uncovering future business outlooks and forecasts of the Malaysian retail and services sector. They will also be getting down to how retail businesses can embrace digital transformation and be fully prepared for the next chapter beyond the pandemic. Our first guest of this panel will be rejoining us from his recent presentation session. He is ADA's Regional Head of Business Insights, Vittorio Furlan. Our second guest is an international retail veteran, having worked for over 30 years in some of the world's leading food retailers. Geoff is currently the CEO of the Food Purveyor, Malaysia's premium supermarket operator of Village Grocers, Ben's Independent Grocer, and Pasaraya OTK. Geoff is also a non-executive director of Russia's largest food retailer, the X5 Retail Group. Our third guest is Shirley, the president of Malaysia Retail Chain Association, MRCA, which is the largest retail chain and franchise association in the country, with more than 450 members representing over 25,000 outlets, providing more than 300,000 job opportunities. Shirley is currently the Regional Corporate Director for Southeast Asia of Sunrider International. Our fourth speaker is a very special and esteemed guest from the Malaysian government. Yang Berbahagia Datuk Seri Haji Hasnol Zamzam bin Haji Ahmad is the Honourable Secretary General of the Ministry of Domestic Trade and Consumer Affairs. Datuk Seri Haji Hasnol has held posts in various government bodies and ministries since 2002, prior to his current appointment in February 2020. He was also appointed as the chairman of the Companies Commission of Malaysia, SSM, with effect from 1st April 2020. Last but not least, our panel moderator, Professor Willem Smit, is an assistant professor of marketing at the Asia School of Business and an international faculty fellow at MIT Sloan. Prof. William's expertise lies in strategy making and managerial cognition, particularly in areas of digitalization and internationalization of brands. We could not ask for a much better way to close the conference than the honor of having this panel discussion. And this is going to be a wonderful session. I cannot wait. The panel is getting ready soon, so please stay tuned and we will be back shortly.
The objective of this power panel is to conclude and to give some interpretation for all the new ideas that we heard about where retail is going. Retail is going in Malaysia. So to discuss this, we have an esteemed panel from different organizations looking at and working with the industry from different angles. I'll introduce the panel. It is not only questions to the panel, we'll also have questions to you and to the audience. So it will be a highly interactive, hopefully, session. So first, on my left, already introduced by Mira, by the way, but we have Vittorio Furlan from ADA. ADA is the digital marketing arm of Axiata. Then we have YBhg Datuk Seri Hasnol Zamzam bin Ahmad, the Secretary General of the Ministry of Domestic Trade and Consumer Affairs. Thank you so much, welcome. Then to his left is Ms. Shirley, who is the President of the Malaysian Retail Chain Association. Welcome. And then totally to the opposite, last but not least, is Mr. Geoff, who is the CEO of the Food Purveyor, operating brands such as the Village Grocer. Welcome, everyone. So to start our discussion, I asked the panel 4 questions, and those questions allow us to dig deeper and give meaning to what is going on in the industry and what other forces will shape the industry in the future, and specifically in Malaysia. So in ASB, we believe fairly strongly in action learning. So nothing is as good as as practical as a good theory. So in these questions are also based on first trying to dissect what actually makes an industry strong. Then we move to, okay, what is going to change? Is this good? And then what is needed for us to co-create and make the best of these new evolving opportunities? So those are the questions we're asking the panel, and we're involving you as the audience. All right? So first question, panel. Are you ready? The question is actually first is about Malaysia's retail industry and its great achievements in the last 2 decades, because Malaysia retail industry has actually been growing quite at a rapid rate, and has, I think, as no other compared to other countries, one of the highest retail floor space per capita in the world, and that shows, I think, some of the commitment and interest in this industry. So I would like to invite first YB, Datuk Seri, Hasnol to comment. I would like to invite him first. Not only he is like me a minority, he is the only one that is like me not business. We're all business people here. He is government, I am academics. I would like not only because he's a minority here, but also because it's actually his birthday today. Congratulations, happy birthday. Right.
Thank you very much.
So what makes Malaysia's retail industry so great, and what has been the big achievements in the last 2 decades?
Thank you, Willem, for the questions, and also a very good afternoon to my fellow distinguished panelists. As you know, as you mentioned, retail industry or retail sectors has been one of the biggest contributor to the country's economy for many decades. For example, in the year 2000, the total contribution to the GDP was only about 34 billion. But in 2020, the contribution has climbed to 237 billion. So it's almost tenfold increase within the span of 2 decades. And in terms of growth, the sector has been growing on average about 10 to 11% every year. So it's been a consistently productive sector in terms of its contribution to the national economy. So it is only natural for the government to continue to provide whatever support and assistance that it can provide to make sure that the industry can grow further and be sustained in the future. It's only that unfortunately that in the year 2020, and also for the time being at least, that there's been a disruption because of the pandemic that I think not only unique to this country but all over the world. But I believe that this setback is just temporary, and the government is working very hard and has been introducing several measures to make sure that the setback that is being experienced in the industry is not going to be a long-lasting one, and soon it's going to get back to its own track. And I think with the developments recently, when the government allow more economy to operate, SOPs introduced, the vaccination programs, and maybe soon the borders will be open for much more free traveling within or among the states. I think the industry will start to flourish again, and we will see a lot more recoveries in the subsectors of the industry, as well as in the industry as a whole. The government has been consistent in making sure that the retail industry is being supported through our 5 Malaysia plans. Now we are going into the 12th Malaysia plan, and similar policy directions, broad policy directions to support this sector has been put in place. We have planned to launch it officially, the 12th Malaysia plan, but because of the COVID situation, we'll have to think about how to officially launch the plans. And in the document, you will see a very specific policy statement and strategic directions that we have committed to keep on supporting this industry. And also, recently the government has also launched the Malaysia Digital Economy Blueprint. And again, in that document, similar policy support has been stated clearly to ensure that the shift between from the traditional brick and mortar ways of doing businesses within the retail industry to online and e-commerce platform is fully supported by various government programs, strategies, and also funds. In fact, at the moment, there are so many funds available within various ministries and agencies that is made available to support various subsectors within the retail industry. And I think that is something that the industry player should try to benefit from. And if there are anything further that the government need to do, I think the government is always willing to listen to new ideas and new ways on how this industry can be further assisted in the future. Willem.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Yes, it's interesting to see that in the 11 of 12 months ago, we were all getting into something unknown. And so business and government, they need to learn together. And like you mentioned before our meeting here, that the quick feedback loops lets us guide us through this very dark period. Yes, with bright sides in view. Thank you. Ms. Tay, your view on what makes Malaysia retail so strong in the last 2 decades?
In my opinion, I think for the past 2 decades, retail industry has really done very well. Why I say that is because if you look at the number of shopping malls around, it's not only in the cities, in the suburbs, as well as even the smaller towns. There are many shopping malls, which have mushroom. If you, I know in terms of numbers, there are how many, but everywhere you go now, you see new, shopping malls. Let's not take COVID, that year, like from March, 2020 to now. If you discount that, I would say that retail has performed tremendously well. Why I say so is also because of the induction of a lot of foreign brands, that have come to Malaysia, plus the local brands which have actually gone out, to other countries. And in addition to that, I think Malaysians are essentially very creative group of people. We have actually been able to come up with very interesting licensing and franchise model, which have really helped retail a great deal. I think if you look at the omnipresence of a lot of e-commerce platforms, it's not only just an international brand like, Amazon and also JD.com. There are lots of additional e-commerce platforms that have surfaced, for instance, Lazada, Shopee, as well as Muda.com. I think that would be the clear indicators to tell us that retail has actually performed extremely well in the past 2 decades. Yeah, had it not because of COVID, we should be actually on the increasing trend. This is my personal opinion. Yeah, I think it is also supported by lots of facts as well, as what YB was saying, I think tourism helps a great deal. If you look at the numbers of tourists, increasing every year, that helps retail a great deal. Because if I understand this correctly, tourism should be a big factor in terms of contribution to the country's GDP. And with tourists coming, they naturally would spend a lot on retail. I know that the receipts and also the sales they recorded in the shopping mall is very high, and so would be accommodation as well as eating in the restaurants. All these factors would positively contribute to the growth of the retail industry. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, it is that creativity and adaptability and the flourish of new brands that really made the industry flourish more. Geoff, could you add to that?
Yeah, I can speak on behalf of the sort of food retail industry. It's interesting, looking back 20 years, I was working for Tesco 20 years ago. And Tesco, I think, is about 20 years old in Malaysia. And so in that time, we've seen a lot of influx and a lot of investment into buildings and structures and malls, like Shirley was mentioning, a lot of investment. And behind that goes logistics and supply chain and lots of investment. So I think that's one of the founders of the success today. In the food retail industry, we've invested in a lot of refrigeration and a lot of people investment and that sort of stuff. So today's retail and today's food retail is very different to food retail 20 years ago. So a lot more fresher product, a lot more availability, a lot more choice and variety, and really in air-conditioned and comfortable surroundings you can do your shop. So it's a big change from sort of historic retailing into modern retailing in the last 20 years. So it's been an exciting 20 years, I think.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you, Geoff. So the modernization of retailing, of the retailing industry. And so does modernization stop? That's maybe a good question for Vittorio to tap on.
Absolutely, and probably I'm actually the kid on the block here, because I've just been in Malaysia for 4 years, so I don't have 20 years of view. But if I actually remember the first time I came to Malaysia, which was in 2010, coming from Sydney. I remember we used to have a training center here in KL for the entire APAC region. And one of the key highlights of coming to KL was actually the shopping, was actually going to the shopping malls. You may think that in Sydney we didn't have any shopping malls, but we actually did. But it's simply that the offering in Malaysia was, in KL especially, was significantly bigger, both at the high end and at lower end. And so we always used to add an additional weekend to the trip just to go and do shopping. Nice. You can imagine that when the training center was moved from KL to YBhg, then the attendance rate dropped a little bit. But the other point that I wanted to add is really, for the ones also who saw my presentation earlier on, when you look at the rebound of footfall, every time that the restrictions post-MCO are lifted, it's quite significant. People are just going back to the shopping malls as soon as they can, which really suggests that as we get out of the pandemic and the intervention, people will want to go there. And also when you look at the online businesses as retail, if you look at, for example, the numbers from Lazada, just last year, they've increased by 300% the number of businesses that operate on the platform. So the potential and the strength is really there, and they're really seconding Shirley's point on international tourism and the importance of having people to come from abroad to shop.
Okay, thank you. Very good. Yeah, so it's great to see all the different answers from the different perspectives on different levels, and that determines the competitiveness of an industry. The possibilities that the government provides for competition, wide competition, growing creativity, as Shirley mentioned, and then the investment in modernization, and then also I think what Vittorio mentioned is that consumers are very adaptable here and react positively to good changes. So I would like then to ask the audience, and so this is an audience question. We're moving into an experiment here. We did a test, I understand, the test, Mira did this, very good. So I would like to invite the audience to go to the live poll. Please scan with your phone the QR code, and then you can see the question. So the question is, do the success factors of the period of historic retail growth of over 10 times, as Datuk Seri says, does it make us successful in the future? Yes or no? Let's see what the audience says. So I understand we need a little bit of time for the different channels to react. So this is our kind of private time. We can do some chatting now. And I know betting is not allowed, but what do you think will win? Yes or no? You think yes? Do the success factors? Is it? Let's see. And can we see the results? Are they? Oh, wow. Oh, wow, yes. There is diversity, though. There is a bit of a debate. It's a 2/3 versus 1/3. So I'd like to kind of ask now the panel to say, okay, what has actually now changed? What is disrupting Malaysian retail? Which, so if you look at international developments, the big changes were already happening before COVID. Big changes, big structural changes were happening on 6 different levels. And so I'll ask the panel whether the developments that they have seen in international markets are the same as in Malaysia. Being one is the emergence of big marketplaces like Amazon, the moving to consumer-centric omni-channels, the massive data collection. You have also the emergence of new technologies and applications like VR and AI, and then you have the Gen Zs coming in as a very new group that potentially changes the retail landscape. So I would like to ask first Miss Shirley Tay to tell us which are the major factors to changing the retail landscape nowadays.
I think that there are a lot of similarities, as to the factors that you mentioned just now. In Malaysia, maybe I would like to talk about Gen Z first,
Yeah.
Why I talk about this sector is because I feel that the Generation Z is a very powerful contributor to the economy.
Mm-hmm.
Simply because I think they are very knowledgeable right now. They are very well informed. And I think they are also financially very secure, thanks to parents like us who have fewer children right now, And I feel that they will be the great disruptor to the economy. Why I say so is because I think this group of youngsters, because of the fact that they are very knowledgeable, they can be very demanding at the same time. And the other factor that I feel is very important is that a lot of businesses would have to real data collection is probably the number one thing they have to do. To me, is that number is money. Everybody is fighting to get the numbers, you look at the emergence of all this e-commerce platform, the few that I mentioned just now, everyone is trying to compete for the numbers. So that itself would be a disruptor. You mentioned, rightly just now, Willem, about the technology. Things that we did in the past, they're very different already now. People are using a lot of, AI, chatbot, and also artificial intelligence as well. It's even robotic kind of service. I think whether we like it or not as retailers in the market, we have to embrace that. It is no longer like we have to learn to adapt. We have to treat it like it's the current norm. I think in the past 1 year or so, the speed of how we learn, to go on automation has been compressed to a very fast pace because we don't have a choice. We have to embrace it. If we don't do it, we will be so-called eliminated in the competition. So to me, such are the biggest disruptor. But I feel that as retailers, I like to say that we need not be fearful because we have a lot of experts who can help us. I mean, for instance, YBhg is one of, them. Like I was just chatting with YBhg just now. He said that his company does a lot of, system that can actually help retailers. I feel that retailers should learn to embrace all these changes, and then, they need to be well equipped. And the fact that if you join an association like us, from Malaysia Retail Chain Association, you can really enlist on our help and then get support from the association as a whole. So those would be the major disruptor, I feel. But having said that, I don't believe that for retailing it will go all into digital because it's already very crowded. I feel a lot of smart businessmen and women are really doing the omnichannel basis. They are going online, but they are also doing offline because there are a lot of times connection with the consumer is very important. You need to get engaged with them. You got to understand their wants, and their demands as well. So connectivity and engagement with consumer would be the number one thing we have to emphasize in. So yeah, that would be my opinions.
Yes, especially because there is this Gen Z group that is growing.
Yes.
And they are digitally native.
And they are fearless. They ask a lot of questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. Yes. Thank you so much. Datuk Seri, could we ask for your opinion on what is the major disrupting factors in?
I guess
in
something
industry?
that we cannot avoid moving forward into the future is that the shift in the consumer base. Because as more and more percentage of the consumers are made of the younger generations, the G generations, so their experience of doing businesses or transactions is already very different from their earlier generation, from their fathers and mothers. In fact, I think for my kids, for most part of their life, their experience in dealing with businesses, doing transactions, has been much more different from what I experienced. So I think this has somehow influenced and has become a fact that need to be given due attention by the retailers, the businesses, and also the industry, so that they must face the reality that the demand of their future consumers will be very different from the type of businesses that they are offering, or the type of transaction that they are offering, or even the model of businesses that they are offering. I think in a way there is no two ways about it. Businesses must be prepared and must be able to adapt and adopt as fast as possible. Secondly, the level of technology that is already in the hands of the consumers. Now consumers have everything in their hands, and they make decisions, they make choices, and they shift to different ways of doing things, just like that. So we cannot stop technology from being available to the consumers. So we don't know what the kind of future technologies is going to be experienced by consumers. But whatever we have now, the kind of technology that we have in the hands of the consumer, really determine the way they do businesses and deal with their day-to-day transaction experience. Secondly, doing business and going through transaction has been life trends, new lifestyle. It's not just like doing normal things like getting something from the grocery stores, or just getting something for your kitchen, for your households. It has become a new experience, a consumer experience. With the advancement of technology, this has become a lifestyle. Yes. People see that if you go and stick to the normal brick and mortar style of doing business, it is old-fashioned. The sexy thing about doing business and transaction is going online and e-commerce. So I think those are the few things that really will determine the direction of the future of this industry.
Yes, very nice. Yes, yes. So it's as a firm also catching up with the technology adoption of large customer groups, right? So they're in order to reach them, they're now maybe better reachable through their screens that they hold in their phone. And I think someone who knows a lot about the technology behind the handphone and the screens and the data that you can collect with that, Vittorio, can you to add to that how this is changing the landscape in?
I really like the point of YB. I think it's spot on in terms of the experience that the new consumers want to have. We often look at things as disruption, but I think it's much better if we actually look at what the new consumers want to have. Because what is the disruption for us? What is the disruption for the industry? Is actually the normality for the new consumers. And especially new consumers are now very well proficient at switching multiple channels. Coming from an advertising standpoint, the way that I communicate or I influence people is not necessarily anymore through a big billboard on the street. It may not be even necessarily through ads on Facebook or other social media. I may need to consider what the influencers are, what type of circle of other people the person is surrounded with. And so the way that we communicate to the new consumer has changed. The way that the new consumers get information and like to execute transactions is different. There was a fear when e-commerce came about that everything would have shifted from brick and mortar to e-commerce. Actually, in certain cases, the exact opposite has happened because people like to research online, but then they go in the store to buy the good. They want to try, they want to see it, and then of course they leave feedback online. So I think the trick here is really not to look at that as a disruption, as a brand or as a retailer, but just as looking at what the consumer really wants, and how do we satisfy that desire for a given experience.
Yeah, okay, noted on that. So not disruption, but adapting and
new reality.
A new reality. So maybe that's a good point also to ask Geoff on how he adapts to that new reality for the food purveyor.
Thanks, Willem. Yeah, no, I totally agree with my fellow panelists of what they've been saying, but I mentioned the amount of investment that went in the last 20 years into hypermarkets and malls. I see an equivalent amount of money going into online and e-commerce and home delivery, and so the retail industry is continuing to invest and morph and change. And really, as a retailer, we've just got to learn and adapt and go with the flow. It's as Vittorio said, it's about meeting customer needs, and customer needs are changing, and we have to adapt. And so I'm lucky that the food retail industry is one of the last industries in retail to change, and customers like to go in and pick their different fruits and their items. But that has changed. In the last year, we've seen a much bigger growth in online commerce, probably a generation shift in 1 year. So we've had to adapt very fast to meet that need. And where we used to pride ourselves by having a smiling butcher explaining which cut of meat does the customer want and explaining how to cook it, that's now a different customer experience that we now have to think about how to do that online. So the customers need to be entertained and educated and served, but it's in a very different way to it was in the past.
Nice. Thank you so much. Yes, great. So we see in one hand a technology leap of retailers trying to catch up with advanced consumer groups that not disrupt but bring us to a new reality. And so I think it's good to ask the panel on how they see the audience. I would like the audience to go to the Slido and ask how they see the future. So since once the economy comes out of a lockdown and the society reopens later, hopefully this year, we'll see a return to normalcy and growth, ? We have 4 options. The first one is, are we going back to normal with slow growth? Do we go back to normal with high growth? And do we go back to new normal with slow growth or new normal with high growth. Yeah? So we'll give all the channels a little bit of time to react. But in the meantime, I'll ask Vittorio.
Are we voting?
About okay, we're going to adapt to that new normality of consumers, right? But not all the consumers are the same. And as you also showed that once it reopens again, footfall will come back. So will there also be big groups that actually go back to old habits? And how much does that actually affect normalcy? Maybe we go back to what was before.
Yeah, that's
How would you?
That's a good point, and also I'm looking at the results on the screen. Saying that
trying to
basically it
influence
will be
it, right?
almost definitely a new normal. Look, we did a lot of analysis during last year, looking at how people change their behavior. And admittedly, there are people that just want to go back to the way the things used to be. There's no doubt. But there are also many people that have simply changed completely their behavior. When you look at distance traveled to go to a shopping mall, many people are now less willing to travel to go there. When you look at the time that is spent inside the shopping mall, many people are spending less time. They just go, they do what they need to do, and come back home. So we do expect that as 2021 goes by, we will see a differentiation in how people behave. Not everybody will go to that new normal. Some people will try to stay where they were before.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think the panel showed that there's wide agreement on there's new normal. Things will now go back to pre-COVID. And because it has accelerated those structural changes that were already happening before, right? But there is wide kind of uncertainty whether it will be high growth or low growth, right? Maybe this is something that I could ask Geoff to speak to. What do you think, and what do you actually would recommend retailers for potentially those two different scenarios in the future?
Yeah, I mean, my view is that there's no new normal. You know, I don't think things have settled down yet, and every week there seems to be a change and a new way. So until vaccination is processed through and we've worked out how to exist in tomorrow's society, I think we've just got to accept there's going to be a high period of change. You know? But I think for me, as a retailer, we've got to adapt, and we've got to be understanding customers so much better than we have done before, and anticipating how they're changing, how they're thinking, and what they want. And that's making us very agile and very nimble, and trialing lots of different things. And different customers definitely want to be treated differently.
Nice. Okay. Thank you. Then Shirley, could I ask you about what do you recommend for preparation for those different possible futures? Whether there is a normal, whether will be an evolving new, changing normal all the time. What would you recommend retail and retail sector to?
I tend to agree with the audience, because I do believe that a lot of people will have no choice, especially retailers, to embrace the new normal, because the past 1 year has been very difficult for retailers. I think a lot of them have actually started doing things differently, and such things that they have done has become normal to them. You know, so it will be new normal, in my opinion. And I do feel that after the lockdown, in my definition, would be lots more people would have been vaccinated to have this herd immunity, and then people are already allowed to travel. I would feel that growth will be quite fast in the beginning, because lots of businesses have been suppressed, you know, for the past 1 year or slightly over a year. Many retailers are eager, you know, to really go back to their businesses. In fact, even if you look at the lockdown period, it's amazing that some of the retailers are able to even bring their businesses to overseas and continue to expand. If I may quote, one of them is a local brand, Mary Brown's. They are able to continue, you know, to expand in terms of the number of franchise outlets they have.
Wow.
And then recently, if we have read the news, we see that Singheng Electronics, you know, continue to win a lot of awards for their outstanding and amazing achievement. I feel that even during the COVID time, retailers are vigilant, and then they learn to adapt. So what more if after the lockdowns? I think things will be going really fast at the beginning. Maybe it will, so-called stabilize after a while. But I would think that the retailers will be very gung-ho of wanting to really, build a great height after that. So I tend to agree with the polling result.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Good. Thank you. Gung-ho. Wow. Yeah. So an excited industry. Datuk Sri, what would you say to prepare the industry for these different futures?
Well, I think first the industry must assess and respond to the new reality. Whether it's new normal or new reality, it is something different. To take the position that things will go back to the pre-pandemic situation, I think it's not something that is wise to do. I don't think it's going to be back 100% to the pre-pandemic situation. I think in terms of source of revenue, a lot more percentage will be coming from online and e-commerce segment. And as consumers found a new comfort zones in doing businesses, I think they will try to stay in their own comfort zones. Their new found comfort zones is, for example, like having the luxury of doing shopping from the comfort of their living hall, without having to go out and do the driving and go into all sorts of hassles in the process. So this newfound comfort is, I think, is going to become more entrenched into the psychology of the consumers, and this is something that industry must find ways to counter. What kind of offer that they can produce so that to attract people to move out of their comfort zones, especially in certain subsectors within the retail industries. And also, besides the newfound comfort zone, there's also a newfound fear zone that the consumer is experiencing now, because they are not so sure whether they should go back to their previous activities where they just go out whenever they feel like it. They may have different preferences. They may not want to travel into crowded places, in the malls, for example. They may prefer to just go to the neighborhood businesses and retails. So this newfound fear, I don't know how long it will last, will also have some bearings on the landscape of this retail industry in the future.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very good points. Yeah. So the newfound fear zone and that will change mobility that we have, so different from what we have been seen before, and more closer to home, and more working from home, and then occasionally going to office or other place of work. Vittorio, you have data on mobility.
Yeah, look, I wanted to build on what YB was saying about the comfort zone, which really is very different person to person. So we all reacted in a different way to this situation, and what we define as comfort may change. Geoff and I were chatting just before the panel. He said that at the beginning of the MCO, he was actually switched all his business onto WhatsApp. And all of a sudden, everything became very, very efficient. And I'm very similar in that sense. I really like to just WhatsApp. So maybe the comfort zone for somebody like me is just actually forget about e-commerce. I'm just going to WhatsApp my order, and I'm just going to buy on that. But that may be my case, and also maybe my case now. As Geoff was saying, things are going to likely change as we go through the year, as we go through the vaccinations, the lockdowns, and so on. So the trick for businesses, in my view, is really to be able to understand their customers and be able to capture information about them so that they can understand what comfort zone means. They can understand whether the customer is interested in traveling or not traveling, interested in going to the store or not seeing a salesperson as they go into the store. I think oftentimes we tend to think about having one way that applies to all our clients, our customers, whereas in fact we should make use of the information that we can capture and that we know to be able to provide a more personalized service. And that applies not just to the small shop where the owner may know personally their customers, but even to be larger chains where the number of customers is huge, but actually you can use tools to capture information and segment the customer in a very granular way.
Yeah, mass personalization, customization. Yeah, very nice. So, yeah, thank you for those suggestions on how to prepare for the future and different scenarios, whether there will be what type of new scenario will unfold. Before we ask the audience, actually, I want to intersect another question that we haven't talked about yet. But I'd like to. I've seen other presentations in the conference, and a lot are talking about the adoption of new technologies and the changes are happening. So if we look at the Malaysian retail industry, which are the players that are ahead of this, that are the best adopters of these new technologies? Would you like to talk about a case that you've heard about and share?
So I can talk broadly about what we see many clients doing, not just in Malaysia but across the region, which is really start making sense of the data that they capture from the customers. YB was saying about the use of mobile devices.
Yeah.
Every time that you use a mobile device, there is lots of information that the customer is producing. Every time that you go on a website, it's the same. Every time that I swipe my Bytes card for a Village Grocer, again, I generate lots of information. And what we see is putting all this information together, solutions like customer data platforms that allow you to create a single picture and make sense of it. And what's interesting is that what you discover is not necessarily what you would know before. You may make new discoveries as you go along. And one bit important, often we think about price sensitivity. We think that people like low prices, but actually often people like better service, way more than low prices. They prefer to receive something extra as opposed to just being given a discount or a voucher.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, how do we know it? Because we're able to put a lot of information that previously was staying in different silos, and now it's combined together.
Okay. So you can really track the whole price elasticity and see how it's combined with better service and make better offerings.
Absolutely. The
So you can
service
automate
component is key to that, yes.
Yeah, nice. Yes, Geoff?
Yeah, no, I'd add to that. I mean, we have had to rapidly learn new skills in our retailing business. So in the last year, we've gone online ourselves. We've listed with the likes of Shopee and Lazada, and we've dealt with home delivery guys. And we've really had to adapt our model. And in the way we market our business, we've had to realize that you can't just rely on your shop window to attract people as they walk past. You've actually got to go upstream and start connecting with people outside of your shop and into the social media and the internet. So there's lots of different skills that businesses need to learn and adapt in the new world, and how to attract people, draw them in, and then lock them in once you've got them are skill sets that we're all learning and adapting to.
Yeah. You're talking about the funnel, right? So the attraction, and then behavior conversion, and then loyalty. Yes, very good. Thank you. Yes. I'd like to ask the question to the panel, or to the audience. Let's do the live poll. Audience, there is a QR code, and the question is, when we reconvene so we have this panel again in about 4 or 5 years' time, and we look back on these last years, what do we see then? Are you the positive, negative? What do you think of what happened to the international competitiveness? Is your looking back, what you see going to happen in the coming 5 years, is that negative or positive, very positive? So we see the questions coming in. And we see actually it's all very positive. Wow, we have a very positive crowd.
Super positive
I think
crowd,
it's just the effect of the panelists here. Fantastic.
It's a
Giving
good,
great
it's a good sign,
insights.
indeed.
Very good. Nice, overwhelming positive. Wow, yes. I don't think this effect will change if we continue the data collection.
It's a 0 negative result, so that's great.
0 negative results. We have a lot of, yeah. So in generally positive,
Super positive audience.
yes. In generally optimists have a bright future, right? I mean, that's very good. So I'd like to ask the panel, to respond to this overwhelming positive. So what would you give advice to the optimists, and also what would you give them as advice when they meet somebody who is pessimistic about the environment, about how it's going? What would you tell them? Vittorio, can I ask you first?
Yeah, I think there is actually we don't have any pessimists in the audience,
That's
so
very
it's
interesting.
quite difficult to give them advice. But by and large, what I would say is get going now. Don't wait anymore for things to happen. Don't necessarily wait to fully understand what the future is going to be, because you will not be able to. And so with whichever transformation you want to make, whether it's going onto e-commerce and opening a new channel, or whether it's making sense of the information that you capture, or better understanding your customers, just go and start doing it now, because the results then will come back straight away. And of course, to the crowd here that looks to be almost 100% optimist, then just keep doing and keep preaching and attending this type of events, because I think there is a very good sharing of information.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Datuk Sri.
Yeah, I think the pandemic somehow has accelerated what used to be dangling at the horizon in the past. And now it has bring forward all those at the horizons to the doorstep. So it has become a reality that has to be faced.
Yes.
So I think my advice would be we should try to find opportunity from the reality that we are facing. Not trying to deny it or not trying to fight it over, but try to go with the flow. Because technology is very advanced and is in the hands of businesses and also in the hands of the consumers. And as we know, this is a borderless world. And with technology, everybody can reach anybody at any time. It's just a matter of choice whether they want to do it or not. The options are available, the technology and the means are available. So that's why I am not surprised with the optimistic position of our viewers on this issue, and I concur very much with their optimistic view of this issue. And we in the government is very much optimistic about the future of this industry, this retail sector, and we will continue to provide assistance and all the efforts that need to be done. And more importantly, we will continue to engage with the players to get feedback on what really happens on the ground, to help design better policies and programs, and whatever assistance that need to be delivered to players of the industry.
Yeah. Thank you. Geoff?
Yeah, for me, it's great to see such a positive audience. I would say, change is inevitable and it's happening, and COVID has just accelerated it. And I think, the positive attitude of the audience shows that people are embracing that and getting on with it. And for me, we've just got to mix in, join the gang, and see how change, and be part of the change. Don't try and divorce yourself from the change and deny that it's happening. So we're embracing it. We see the Lazadas or the Shoppies as the digital mall of the future. So the challenge is how to be in that mall and how to attract customers to your business. So it's just new challenges. The battlefield has shifted, but the great news is people are still consuming. They still want to consume, and they've still got spending power. So I think there is a positive future ahead, and I think to the negatives, just wake up and go with the change.
Yeah. Thanks. Shirley?
Maybe I'll address the pessimist first. I feel that it has happened. It's no point really looking at spilled milk, right? Life goes on. I think we have to pick up the broken pieces and start to move forward again. And it is important for us to probably also study why we fail sometimes, and then we learn from there. But for those with positive mindset, I think it is important to continue to embrace the new technology. Otherwise, I think you'll be paced out, because things are changing so fast right now. You just have to, go along with the trend. You cannot, so-called neglect changes. And the other thing is that getting yourself equipped is very important. During the pandemic, we see a lot of companies, even though their businesses were affected, they were able to sustain and still grow or maintain, is because they were equipped. They were quick to adapt and modify their systems, So that is important. And as we are in a retail business, I think servicing the customers and also engaging with them is probably one of the most important things. Because if you engage with them, you know what they like, you know what they don't like, you change along with that, it will help a great deal. And what I like about the Malaysian government nowadays is that, sorry, YB, I got to say this, there has been a lot of dialogues. The government is engaging with people like us right now. They are hearing our voice. And if the retailers are finding it difficult in terms of voicing their opinion, it is always good to come under a big umbrella, such as join a reputable association, so that, they can represent you. So, yeah, that would be my view about this.
Yes, wonderful. Yes. So thank you so much. And before, actually, I want to close, before I want to finalize the panel discussion, I think we still have time for 2 or 3 questions from the audience, because I would like, we got a lot of questions here on the screen that you cannot see at home, but we see here. I would like to ask maybe the panelists to select a question they like. We have, I think, about 12 different questions here. Is there?
I can take question 10.
Okay. Question 10.
I'll give you a 60-second answer to 10. Basically, it's the concern or the trying to understand how consumers switch from multiple channels, whether they go to the store to then buy online, or whether they do research online and then buy in the store. Now, it's an important question for a retailer, because you may feel that you are just acting as showing the goods, but actually not getting any revenue, which in certain cases is a reality. But also, again, the technology allows you to understand that, and therefore for the retailer to play a role with the brand and say, look, actually I'm not selling these items, But I clearly know that these customers have been coming, checking the products, and then they've been buying the product online, or they've been leaving reviews. So when we look at the digital consumer, at the hybrid consumer that moves through different channels, actually the retailers should fear not, because they would be able to prove that they did play indeed a role in the process. And that's 60 seconds.
Yeah, that's it. Very good.
Can I pick a question?
Yeah. A question for
I'd
you.
like to pick number 9 from KY Tan. His questions is about how would consumers react to an AI robot chef cooking food? Or would they still prefer their food to be cooked by human? What are the pros and cons of this? I guess my response will be, it all depends on what kind of food you're going for. If you're going for a fast food chain, it's perfectly okay for the robot to cook for you. But if you're going for fine dining, I think I would, really prefer the well-trained chef to cook, because you would want the taste to be maintained. Why I say that is because in the sense of fast food kind of chain, right? You want to serve your customer fast, because they have this specific kind of efficiency rate, as in how quickly you should get your food and your drink. So I think robots will do a better job in this regards.
Yes.
But in terms of fine dining, sometimes you would want variety. You would want the chef to do something a little bit different for you, like make it more spicy, make it sweeter. So that should be cooked by human. I hope I answered his question.
Yeah. Oh, nice to see that differentiation. Depending on the positioning or the proposition, you apply different types of technologies. Yeah. To connect with your customer audience. That's really good. So, and you would like to take
Probably
one?
I can
Yeah?
take one of those questions on this big data. There's a question on
the
when
question
the
of big
ministry
data?
is going to embark on big data. I think number 5 or number 6. Maybe number 6. Or number 2.
It's number 2.
Yeah. So in terms of big data, in fact, the ministry has started its effort to use big data in understanding the whole chain of activities in various industries. But of course, we have to start small in order to prepare ourselves and to gain knowledge and expertise. But as you know, we need to work closely with industries, because to have meaningful data to be analyzed, we need a lot of collaborations of information from industries, and sometimes this can be challenges to ministries, because maybe some of the data are sensitive to the industries or to the businesses, and we may not get as much as we require to complete the kind of data that we need to do our analysis. But we are working on it. We are not saying that we are not starting anything, but I think the industry will be further engaged on this aspect of big data and blockchain.
Wow, that's fascinating. Yeah, to build a data environment across industries that still protects consumer rights, not so to secure data privacy, but still allowing businesses to train their models and to customize further their offerings. Yeah, fantastic, wonderful. So yeah, so I would like to thank you all for this panel. I would like to thank the audience. I think we got quite a good discussion on how what were the strengths of the industry, what are the new challenges that the industry faces, how to adapt to those changes and actually co-create a new future. And I think with an audience that is so positive and excited about the future, I don't think, I think we'll have a party in 5 years' time when we resit here to redo the panel. Thank you so much. Yes. Oh yes, well yes, and we do the party today because it is your birthday. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.